$330 million. That's how much GoFundMe says has gone toward memorial fundraisers every year, covering things like family support after a death and funeral costs, an average $10,000 expense. Those high costs for death care can come as a surprise for the unprepared.
You don't want to think about your end, and you don't want to think about what life will be like without you.
Death and what you want after you die is the conversation nobody wants to have, unless of course you're librarian Andrea Castillo and have led discussions at the local death cafe.
I had started as a person kind of trying to confront my own anxieties about death.
Death cafes all over the world tend to happen in people's homes or places like this library, where folks are comfortable gathering over coffee, cake, and conversations on death.
The topics can run the gamut from, we've talked about what it's like, losing a parent or losing a sibling. What arrangements do you want to make? Living wills. There are even like what it's like to clean out your relative's house after they die.
Talking about birth control doesn't make you pregnant, and talking about death doesn't make you die.
Sandy Schlaudecker and Isabel Burney are volunteers with the Blue Ridge, Virginia branch of the National Funeral Consumers Alliance. They say the kinds of talks happening at death cafes are a good first step in planning for one of life's biggest expenses.
For the basic funeral, at one place it might be $5,000. Across the street, it might be $10,000.
With prices varying so drastically, it may seem hard to know what's fair and what isn't if you're suddenly faced with burying a loved one or just hoping to plan ahead. The FCA says that's where they come in, compiling a list every 2 years comparing local funeral home costs. For example, the lowest price containers for remains will run you anywhere from $35 for a cremation container to $3,295 for a traditional casket. A hearse anywhere from $90 to $500, and embalming is anywhere from $425 to $1,395.
Once the person has died, they're traumatized, everything's happening so fast. And comparison shopping just is not like a mindset.
The Federal Trade Commission also lays out some guidelines to protect consumers during what can be a really tough time. It's known as the funeral rule. For instance, funeral homes must provide an itemized list of the total cost of a funeral, or at least a good faith estimate up front. They also can't force you to buy one of their caskets, and must accept caskets from third-party vendors, which may be cheaper than what you're offered on site. Schlaudecker and Burney say their group's mission is to make sure people know this kind of info exists, and to encourage families to prepare, but never prepay.
It's a good idea to think about what you want and to know about how much it will cost. Then you set aside that money and you control that money. Don't give it to a funeral home, because no one prepays for a TV and picks it up 3 years later.
But sometimes finding the cash is just difficult, which leads some to crowdsourcing. Even still, experts say having the conversation now can ease the burden, even if it's just emotionally. Amber Strong, Newsy, Washington.